It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. Welcome to the podcast, everyone. With us today, we have the mighty Chad Jutner.
Hey.
We have Peter Lawrence.
That's me.
Also mighty. And the mighty Bennett Verhey. Hello. Is joining us as well. And I'm Kyle Bacher. And today it's what happens when you F things up? What do you do? Chad, you F things up a lot, right?
No, I'm actually unfamiliar with the idea. I'm here mostly as a listener. I want to hear.
Just in case it happens.
Yeah,
just in case.
I'm curious to hear what it happens, what it must feel like to make mistakes.
We have our emotional support Chad with us today.
Yeah.
And all right. Well, I've got plenty of stories. I once deleted the entire mailbox of the head of operations for a major furniture company. Or no, it was a major sports retailer. That is no longer with us.
No, wait. I deleted it for both of them.
This happens a lot. Yeah. I was doing a migration, upgrading versions of Office and stuff, and I missed a step because I did it too many times and I got like overconfident and moving too fast and zap. And that's when my stomach tied itself in a knot and I felt like 2 inches tall and ashamed. And he was very, very nice, very graceful, very forgiving. But initially he turned a dark red color and I could see steam coming out of his ears, but he held it. He held on to it. So he was a class act. Thank goodness. So, yeah, I always admit it. I just
Did you recover it? Did it ever get recovered?
No,
it was just gone.
And then a month later, he came and he's like, I think that was one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because when I restarted, I put a folder structure together. I got organized. And yeah, I was like, well, that was my intent. So I want to say that right away and seemed like I was making excuses. But yeah, I did. I knew that was going to happen. No. What do you do after you F up? I just fess up right away. I want to be the first one that tells on myself.
Bennett? If I'm the one that does it and I catch it, yeah.
Yeah.
Worse is when you do it and then somebody else catches it.
Oh, you didn't know you did it. And then someone says, hey, what happened to this?
Yeah.
And you say, me.
Having a little bit of a plan too, like, hey, yeah, this thing happened. Here's what I'm planning on doing to at least start looking at it or trying to fix it, and then getting agreements or change of plan from higher up to say, yeah, let's go do that thing. Early on in my career, I inherited something from another developer who didn't necessarily know what was going on, and I was attempting to fix it and creating, something from a ball of mess. And during that process of creating it into a better process, it still had its issues and ended up sending, and this is before consulting days, ended up sending 17,000 people the wrong correspondence and got a lot of questions. And I was figured that out. I don't know if I found out about it first. I think I might have, but I walked right down to the VP's office and said, hey, here's what happened. And then I was asked a question of which I wasn't quite ready for, which was, how is this never going to happen again? So here's how it's never going to happen again. Yeah.
We turn off all the computers and we never do any work. Just that will keep it from happening.
Forget it. Go live in the woods.
But it was a great learning curve early on in career, because then it's like, all right, I got to set up guardrails. I got to set up data quality checks. I got to set up tests. I need to set up all these other things. And it really spurred that early on in my career. But yeah, I think having a plan, going to said person that's going to have to know about it if that's what's going to happen. And you got to fix that. How are you going to fix it? If it is fixable, and how do you go about that? I think having that plan and being like, hey, I got a problem. Here's a plan. Here's a solution, or at least an attempt at getting it better, and going forward with that. But yeah, having a plan. I like having a plan.
So Bennett, let me ask this question. So you obviously aren't going to make that mistake for 6 months, a year, maybe. Do you ever find yourself like, waking up in a daydream going, wait, I got to focus again on not making that mistake, or are the guardrails enough?
I mean, so early on, I played a little bit more. My role was like DBA / a little bit more intense inside of databases. And so anytime I was in production, I was hyped up on coffee and there were no distractions. You don't have that delete from table or truncate table. Like you just, there's guardrails set up for that kind of thing. And then I developed a couple other habits around that, especially within the code of like, all right, yep, I'm doing a transaction. I'm not just a la carte F5. Let's execute this code. So
that's usually one of my favorite interview questions. I used to interview extensively, and one of the questions, the only question that I thought really mattered, was what was, in your IT career, what was your biggest mistake? Like, what was the biggest thing you screwed up? And then let's just walk through that, right? It's a neat question. It really throws a lot of folks off because they're used to just like, oh, I need to know all of the Spring Boot, top tier projects, or they're thinking they're going to get quizzed on, SQL language or whatever, right? And then
Secret Spring commands that nobody knows.
Yeah, exactly. Or like silly little GitHub issue, like whatever, right? Nobody cares about that stuff. All of that stuff is easy to Google. But the capacity to screw up is what one of my more is always, the answer to that is always a much more interesting answer than, do you know how to do, what's the difference between a left inner and a right, whatever joint? Like nobody cares, right? Like you'll figure that out eventually.
There's a picture that I Google every time I need to know.
Yeah, I know exactly. I had the same one plastered on my wall for a while.
I just Google it every time now because it's like, yeah, I know it's out there. Find me that picture.
One to many, many to one, many to many, outer, inner.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, the answer to that question, and usually the conversation after that is a lot more fun than, do you know the new features of Java 25? Like whatever, right?
What's the spread on the answer to that question? Like that seems very interesting, and I might add that to, like, if I'm interviewing people, I got to add that because that's a good question. What's the spread though on the answers?
Yeah, like I usually try to poke people when it comes to that one, because sometimes they're just like, oh yeah, I mean, I didn't properly I didn't send this through code review. I did, like, there's silly little like dinky things. I'm like, come on, if you've been in IT for over 5 years, you've taken something down. Like some production system has gone down. So one dude,
and if you haven't, why not? What stopped you?
Yeah. So
that's your rite of passage.
One dude deleted half of his production database before. That was a pretty cool one. And the follow up is obvious. Like, well, I mean, this is when we used to have DAT tape backups, right? They almost looked like little mini cassettes. That was probably the most severe example. And then a lot of the newer fellas, they just have like, typos or whatever. I'm like, all right, that's not fun. Let's do better. Screw something up. So make a bigger mistake than that.
Mean, is 17,000 your biggest one, Bennett?
17,000
so far.
Sure. Yeah, that there was a financial ramification to that, and customer retention ramification too. If you get a piece of mail or email with somebody else's name on it from a company you think you're working with, like, what are the chances are that you click and send that to spam and then don't get any more emails from said company?
Ooh, yeah.
It was not just a, like, I don't want to say ego hit, but there was a financial ramification to that issue. And how people can recover from that, or luckily the person that I went to talk with was gracious enough for me to keep my job, and I was going to learn from it either way, right? But sticking around for the aftermath and being able to be there to see how much of an impact that was really left more of a mark on me than had I had to go find a new job, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to stick around for those consequences. So trying to fix that and then implementing all of the guardrails around, next day thing, we really tightened that system up, and we didn't have any issues post that big one. So, and was able to, at the time when I left there, hand off a pretty well-oiled machine to the next individual.
So they took away your root access, and then everything got better. Got it.
He was moved to a cube right outside the CEO's office so they could watch him. Yeah. Well, I think, often when stuff like that happens, you beat yourself up worse than they do. And I try to think of, how would I treat somebody that did this? How would I react to this? And how would I feel about a person that did this? Because usually I'll treat them way better than I'll treat myself.
Right.
So I'll just, it'll stay with me for years. And, they forgave me in a day and we moved on. And it's like, well, why am I still holding on to this? That's just me.
Yeah. Chad, you've been in charge of people before and had them working under you. What's the biggest snafu that you've not caused, and how did you respond to that?
Well, I mean, Bennett made a good point. Like, prior to this, we had a SaaS company, software as a service, right? And mistakes there violate your SLAs with your clients, and that leads to direct financial penalties for us, right? So we had some relatively rigid control, even as a tiny little company where everybody kind of had root access to production, right? And full access to the database. We still had some pretty tight controls on what gets where, because at a place like that, if you don't meet your uptime guarantees, there's contractual financial penalties for us, right? Or I should say, there's a refund that starts to kick in after a while, right? Hey, if we're not X amount of time, if we're down for 8 hours in the middle of your day, you're not going to pay for the entire month's worth of license fees. So that did happen to us a handful of times, and it did expose me to the the non-IT side of that, the legal obligations that you have and the reporting around it and everything else. And it sucks. It's not great. And you don't, it's a lot harder once that has happened to regain trust with your clients, outside of super transparent with, here's what happened, here's the controls that we put in place after this thing happened, right? Because the obvious answer for all of this is, oh no, I made a mistake and I learned from it. And then we, try to wrap controls around whatever went wrong. That one thing turns into that, what is the survivor problem syndrome?
Yep.
The cockpit is really well guarded, but the rest of the plane is shut down.
You don't need wings to fly.
Survivor guilt.
Yeah, no, there's a real what is it?
They studied the planes that came back from World War II to determine what made them better, or what were the weaknesses, right? And where were they being shot and things like that.
Instead of putting armor where there were bullet holes, put armor where there aren't bullet holes, because that's what made the plane survive.
Yeah, survivorship bias. I had to Google the actual thing. But yeah, that's what happens in IT too. We put all sorts of controls around the bullet holes, and then eventually lose kind of the core of what we're doing, right? you get so like your sensitivity level to some things is so high, right? You're like hypersensitive to every stupid little whatever, right? And you start attacking those things vigilantly or addressing those things in such a weird, and then all of a
Yep.
sudden, well, shoot, it's you just kind of ruined what made everything about you special. So,
I think sometimes you get pushed into a situation where it's really, really easy to F things up and really, really hard not to. Um, like right now, I'm troubleshooting an issue with the website and I'm trying to replicate it in Stage and I can't recreate the issue.
Right.
So it's like, okay, the attempted fix is this. I have to do that in production. Try it anyway. And I hope it doesn't break anything. And to go back, to put things back is the problem we're having is it's not saving. So it's like,
Right.
okay, well, we're just going to not care about this problem or, just back the whole thing up and restore it. So it's not the end of the world. We have contingency plans. So it's all right. We just got to do it, low traffic hours. But
But I think
the,
that goes with everything. The longer you work in the business, the more senior you become, the closer to production or the farther away from the dev systems or anything you get, right? You still want to test your code, obviously, but there are times where you're making changes, you're changing the drive wheel while the car is going forward. And, I've got 1,000 lug nuts just in case, but I might run out of them before we get that tire put back on or whatever, right? Like you can try and you can do your best and you can have contingency plans and do things, but you're in production. There's like production is production, and sometimes that's where things have to be changed
mhm.
as little as possible, but it still happens, especially when you get in
yeah,
this business long enough.
I was helping a network guy move us from Novell um, over to Active Directory. And it was after hours, and there was one point where he lost all of it. And it was like, okay. So he wanted to go home and pick it up again in the morning. And I had 150 people coming in the morning. So I said, you're not leaving until this is fixed. We have to do this because tomorrow everybody's coming back to work and they need to be able to log in. And we hung in there. And I went home at 11 the next morning and slept.
Jed, what were you going to say?
there's an argument, like one of the things that I notice at smaller companies as you get bigger, all of the controls and all of the lessons learned after all of these things, it starts to become a hindrance to like the agility of what you're doing,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So the secret sauce to being small and able to like come up with an idea, implement it, and put it out there is that you don't have these massive committees and like approval boards and everything else that you have to go through. And so as the mistakes pile up and as the processes like start to pile up on top of those mistakes, you start to lose a lot of that speed and agility that made you kind of special in the first place. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, but like I've seen it happen multiple times now where you know, I was at a joint, we got acquired, and they wanted to apply all of their their quote unquote best practices.
Best practices, right?
Well, we
Yeah.
did, right? And that that was such a hindrance to our velocity that
Yeah.
most folks just got kind of jaded and dull around that, right? So I think it's important as you go through this process of like make a mistake. Okay, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to check this next time. And you apply all of these, like, you know, I'm a huge checklist guy, like a checklist manifesto guy, right?
Right.
And I love it, but at the same time, you can't you can't let that get in the way of speed, as if speed is what makes you special. Now, if you're just one of these places where, like, a big monolithic vendor and slow and steady is what makes you, people love you, right? Like an SAP or something like that, right? I don't think
Government.
anybody's going to be upset with, us calling out maybe SAP as this monolithic, like they're not known for like pushing the innovation envelope at all, right? And that's, I think, what attracts them to some of the larger organizations. It's reliable, it's dependable, it's a Chevy Silverado of software products. It's just,
Yep.
or Toyota Tacoma, I should say, because
So the result of a lot of effing up is bureaucracy.
Yeah.
it could be just a gut punch to velocity. Yeah, bureaucracy around the delivery process. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I used to run into that with SharePoint. People would want us to, the devs wanted us to have dev, test, and release and roll things out that way and go through change control. And what constituted a change? And it's like somebody uploading a Word document had to go through change control. And that was the fight. It was like, this is different. This is something they use. This is like, think of Microsoft Word. You're not going to go through change control to make a new document. This is to be used and to be used in production. So unless we're doing custom coding and things like that, it doesn't really make sense for us to go through this huge process. And they turned it around. It took a bit, but we turned it around. I basically found a really, really expensive product that would replicate your farm and
Nice.
into other environments, but it didn't, there was no way to do it that was any good. So,
Right. So let me ask you this, Kyle. So they literally wanted change management on uploaded documents for a SharePoint site, which is designed, built all around uploading Word documents.
they got
to a
into the
SharePoint site.
weeds, adding a link to navigation. That's a bigger deal with an external site that, is like a high traffic, changing stuff like that, but not too big a deal because it happens all the time with
I mean,
all of our
Amazon has
products,
404 dogs,
yeah.
right? There's a reason
Yeah.
for that because
Yeah.
they change things all the time.
They do. But back then it was like this huge thing, and they had a whole committee and they met once a week. And it's like, well, we're not meeting this week. So now it's 2 weeks. We don't have a quorum. Yeah.
I just want my
So-
Word document on the site.
It just,
So it sounds like we got like this Goldilocks spectrum of like brand new startup, no change controls, fly by the seat of your pants, do, all the way to we have this giant set of rules and regulation around, you got to go through,
Procedures.
yeah. And you got to take 3 days to get things pushed to prod just to clear all the red tape, and there's a spectrum in between, and then you have all the devs that are new or senior on that spectrum as well, and then we throw into this also, we're consultants versus full-time employees. How do we differentiate on this spectrum? How do we bring secret sauce into here to help a client? Is there anything along there that we do differently along that? Or I'm just curious on what your experience has been, or if that is a thing. Sometimes we aren't able to because there's certain things that are at a client, but is there anything you can do or have done to change or affect that for the positive?
I think the cynical answer is one of the highlights of being a consultant is that you don't have to live with your mistakes because that's not your place. But as far as secret sauce, I mean, I don't know. I think for us, it's just the amount of experience we have around some of this stuff, right? Like, we don't ever necessarily bring on super green developers or anything like that, right? So
Right.
if if you're getting an SDG consultant, you're not just getting a guy or a person. You're getting that person's experience, and then like tapped into the rest of our experience. That's probably a thing that we do better than like an FTE at a gig, right? Like I think a lot of the organizations that I've been at, consulting for SDG and consulting previously for other places, organizations, as much as they try to say they're so siloed, right? And you go to a group within an organization, and the ideas just bounce within that silo, and they don't really, spread out. I see that quite a bit. We don't have that at all, right? Like, yeah, we work within that little box, but also outside of it quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we've seen a lot of those systems being in the process of being added and in the process of being removed because they've gotten too cumbersome. And having that experience. We've talked about in the past going into clients that are Wild West, right? Like they are the green startups, and a little bit of organization to the chaos helps prevent, if, Joe builds on his computer on Thursday mornings on his spare desktop that he keeps under his desk. But if the power's out on Thursday morning, then what, that kind of thing. And I think the cloud has obviously removed a lot of that. The reason that person was building on that machine under their desk is because the process had gotten in the way of acquiring that infrastructure to make that happen in a programmer friendly way, right? Like I can't get a server to go and do this stuff because it's a 3-month process to order a server and a this month process to get the software installed. And you want Visual Studio on that server? Well, good luck. We don't put that on servers. We're just not going to do that. Oh, okay. Well, I'll just sit here on my hands then. Like there's both sides. There's that corporate side where, they want everything locked down. They want no mistakes to happen. But then you have to have some mistakes or change doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's interesting. You have to approach, like, if they have a hard and fast rule that isn't going to really work well for what you're doing and isn't really necessary, you kind of have to have a what's the worst that can happen, and then how you prevent that. Like giving people admin rights to their computers. It's like, oh, that's a disaster. They're going to put all this spyware and, online poker and have like 60 toolbars in Netscape for, I don't know. But that's a lot of companies lock them down. You don't have admin rights. And now when you need software, you have to go into their system and put the order in, request it, go through all those hoops, and then wait for that to get approved by the manager and have a business case for it. It's like, this is just a little dev tool that helps me fix my code or something.
I just want this little piece of free software that's available on the internet for free to do my job.
And it's widely used.
Right.
It's not like I just found this thing and I'm going to throw it in there.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to be able to kind of convince them that, there's places they'll give you temporary admin rights if you need to install something. They'll turn it on, you do it, then they'll turn it off. And that, I think, works pretty well. But developers kind of have their toolkit. And when you go into a customer, they give you a system that doesn't have your toolkit on it. So the first thing you're doing is building that out. And it's like, is that going to be an hour or is that going to be a week of bureaucracy? So that's just one of those, these rules. You want governance, but governance is road signs, speed limits, things like that, things to help people, slippery when wet, big hill coming. But it's not telling people where to drive, where to go. You know, you should go to Perkins. Yeah. You can't go to Embers. Now Embers is gone. Yeah. You can't drive an 8-cylinder car, only a 4-cylinder car. Sorry.
I did just deal with that at a client a couple clients ago where they were tightening down access limits on developers, and they tightened so much that they broke something, and even loosening it didn't get it back. So we got to like, all right, let's play the new different security roles game for about, I don't know, 6 weeks. They're like, take it away, give it back, take it away, give it back, take it away, give it back. There's a reason behind it. Nobody's ever gotten in trouble for taking away admin access, but it is hard.
Getting it back is hard once it's gone.
Hard to def things up, though. I'll say that.
Now, sometimes things, change, especially these days. Every day there's something new and things get moved around. Have you ever effed something up because they just changed the way they did it and you tried it the old way? And so you kind of, where it's kind of not your fault, but you clicked the button that made it happen. Because you don't want to go in with excuses, It's like, I want to go in with reasons, but if you think my reasons are just me making excuses, then because I don't want to do that. I just want to fix a problem. And, I think the key is always going with a plan on how you're going to deal with it and fix it. Like the inadvertent testing of the backup system for a site collection. Yeah. That didn't work, that I deleted.
That's my least favorite.
Yeah.
I like finding out that the backup system was working rather than finding out that it was not working.
Yeah. And there's like usability things that make it a lot easier to F things up. I mean, I reset the security on the HQ a couple of years ago. Like all of it got reset. And I had to go. And there was like 3 or 4 months where things would pop up. Oh, I tried to do this. It didn't work. Okay, let me go fix that. I know what that is. This had custom permissions. Now it doesn't. Yeah, but it's like you have all these different sites, but the screen that has the delete button or the permissions, it's like, am I in the library? Am I in the site? Am I in a site collection? Because they all kind of look the same when you're in those custom permissions. So I always had a rule, triple check, know where you're at. And I didn't follow my own rule. Just carelessness. Yeah. Everyone was really nice about it. I was harder on myself than anybody else. I think you can find those Slack messages too, where I fessed up. So how is like the DR, the disaster recovery? Have you ever done disaster recovery plans?
I've done quite a bit of that.
Before disaster?
Yeah. I mean, I'll go back to being a vendor or being the SaaS provider, right? Like you have to have a whole plan. I mean, it's actually for SaaS providers, it's contractually obligated, right? Like you actually get asks. It's not like
it's kind of the bread and butter, right?
Yeah, and it's not as straightforward as like consumer SaaS applications, right? Like I'm not going to Dropbox and expecting, I don't know, now they're good enough that whatever, they're going to be great. But when you're working at a vendor like that with Fortune 50 clients, right? Like their vendor relations group goes absolutely nuts on those contracts. And they have a set of criteria that you have to satisfy. And one of them usually is, do you have a disaster recovery plan? Right. How often is the plan exercised? Like so many like check boxes that you have to check. So I would anyway, but you really need to have it in place if you're going to be in that kind of a situation. And that's kind of carried over to other, you know, gigs as well, right? Like as I'm working on project work for our customers, that is front of mind, right? Like it might not necessarily be a contractually obligated thing, but I remember how helpful it was to have one, a plan, and two, an exercise that we could go through on a regular basis to prove out the plan.
Now, through that, have you identified areas where you had to like put a fix in or get some kind of solution?
We, a lot of the times, the issues that we had when we exercised our disaster recovery plan are the reasons that you exercise them. So, like software upgrades, right? Database upgrades, that sort of thing. Those kind of calcify over time. And if you don't, you know, crack out a chisel and like make sure that not only are these upgrades like solid, but are they, you know, future proof and can you roll it back and all of that stuff, right? That's part of the software upgrade process, but it's also part of a disaster plan. Like we find a lot of those types of issues out during our DR exercises, and you should do them if you're providing. You know, we might not necessarily have to do them, Peter. I don't know that you necessarily plan for that for clients or anything like that.
Not for a while, no.
It's baked into kind of the infrastructure that we work around a lot of the time, but we do ask the questions early on, like, what is our uptime expectations, like the realistic expectations, and what happens if we have to roll back to a previous version of the database or a previous version of the code or a previous version of anything. That's touching on some of the things that you deal with in a DR recovery scenario.
And I've certainly, like, I haven't run Chaos Monkey in a long time, but my users do. They tend to use, like, hey, here's a new feature. Oh, cool. I'm going to use it in a totally unintended way and see what happens. Oh, that didn't quite work how you intended it. You're right, because you're not using it how I intended it. So there's some disaster recovery that takes place with that. A little bit of data cleanup, but so far nothing major has happened. Bennett, how about you? Like, do you get Chaos Monkeyed that by users or by yourself?
Yeah. So looking at data as a lot of times lower environment, people will just trash or put random data into, or they'll scramble data and put it in there, and it looks sometimes nothing like what's actually in production. So when you're developing things, even just at that level, bringing it up, you're going, what is this? Why is this here? And when I run this in production, it does nothing similar to lower environments.
Right.
So I've run into that recently, actually. And where people whoopsied on data and then they quick covered it up, and now I'm doing a historical view of things, and I'm going, why are there two of these? It's a one-to-one relationship. What in the world is this?
Yeah.
And you run into some real interesting things across the board. And luckily, from like the DR perspective, like Chad was saying, there's a lot of built-in stuff around the infrastructure in the cloud, going back in time to when I was like on-prem DBA or acting DBA. We had a lot of conversations around DR with some of the executives as far as, here's what you can get for X amount of money. How far along the scale do you want to go? How
Right.
fast do you want to be able to recover? Do you want to have a secondary read-only that will flip to primary when that happens? Or do you want, like how fast we need to recover? How granular in time do we need to hit that recovery point?
Right.
And to what level when do we need to have that recovered by? And so I think you can run a lot of those same questions with the existing. Sorry, I have a little bit of chaos here. I think you can run existing things through with that current in the cloud. You can ask those same questions. How that gets implemented might be slightly different, or different levers get pulled or pushed, but they still exist. And being able to recover data or having something stay up, even if it's a little slower, might be worthwhile. But it's still gonna, what's that cost
Still
ROI
costs money,
perspective?
right?
Yeah,
Even
Yeah,
in
it's
cloud.
it's a hard sell to say that we
Yeah.
need to have 2 entire farms set up with failover.
Right.
We're gonna buy double the servers and stuff.
Just in case.
Yeah,
If we
and
add
we're gonna
another
have
9
2
to the
separate
uptime.
ISPs with stuff coming in and a generator, and it's like, yeah, sometimes that's what you do, and that's not cheap. I was at a conference. I watched Microsoft was showing off. They had a huge stack of servers, a whole network and farm and all that stuff. And they had 2 of them side by side. And they just went over and pulled the plug on one. Just, and the other one was up and running within like 8 seconds. It was pretty impressive. And it's like, I want to have that. Like, yeah, that's pretty expensive. I don't, it's like, that's the thing is like, what's the worst that's going to happen? If this happens, what is the outcome going to be? And then what is the severity of that and cost and things like that? I think that needs to be figured into your disaster recovery plan. Because it's not, I don't think you want to use your creativity and imagination and when you're creating those. You really need to be practical and think things through and have even testing. Like people have those plans, but they've never tested any of it. You'll find that really seasoned, bigger companies with bigger teams and more important stuff will have like yearly drills where they go in and they take everything down and then have to recover.
And that's expensive too.
It is. And it's a long weekend.
And can be really expensive if it didn't work how you're expecting it to.
Right. Chad, have you effed
Yeah.
anything up, really?
Um,
You can't be as perfect as we all think you are.
I can. I know it's uncomfortable, but no, I mean we've had there have been configuration issues. As a younger person, trying things on the fly without a good backup strategy has bitten me. But by and large, I mean I've been fairly lucky, right? I've misconfigured database replication once, such that it, configured the master to get from the secondary instead of the other way around, and then you overwrite all your data with nonsense. That sucks. But I always appreciate it as an opportunity to test our backups and our recovery procedures, and keep them fresh and updated. So I wouldn't call them mistakes necessarily. It's just like Bob Ross wouldn't call them mistakes. They're just happy
little accidents, right?
happy little accidents.
Part of the process.
Part of the process, yeah. And it's, I mean, it applies to IT and it applies to a lot of aspects of our career, not just, you can screw up your whatever, you can screw up with people, you can do a lot of things. I don't know. All of it is recoverable. There's nothing, truly, I know at this stage of my career, I'm not going to probably ever want to work for a SaaS vendor again, because the amount of stress that you're under, especially in a very senior position for that stuff. I don't want to deal with that ever again, because
it's a younger man's game.
It's a younger man game. It's a young man's game, and it's also a it's a poorer man's game. Like, we were financially on the hook for some of these things, and if the company went under, then you have your own stuff out there that they can go under. Well, now I've got stuff. Like back then, yeah, take my truck, fine, right, whatever. Now I've got nice stuff, and I don't want to have to ever risk losing. You have more to lose now, and now I'm becoming safer in a lot of things.
All right,
So
we got 10 minutes left. Let's do our parting thoughts. get that going, so we don't run out of time.
Who
Chad.
goes first?
Well, the easiest way to recover from mistakes is to not make them. That is my philosophy. So if you can just try to be perfect, I recommend it. It's worked out pretty well.
Bennett,
Bennett?
Yeah.
the one on mute. Yeah, there he is. He's back. Okay.
Honesty is the best policy, but it's better received with tact.
I like that.
Yes, I agree.
I'm gonna say that disaster recovery is a good thing to have a plan for. It's good to build that out. It's good to test it. It's also great to not test it using the Juttner method of not making mistakes. But knowing where your weaknesses are, knowing where you're giving up redundancy or whatever. You can't have two of everything.
Right.
I don't
It's
have
just not practical.
2 cars for every driver at my house. We have no place to park that many cars.
Yeah.
No farm. So
I my best turnaround on a system that consultant had that went down, blue screen, bad hard drive, up and running in 34 minutes with a new system. And that was partially because of drive time. Like I'm ready for that stuff, and because I have to be. But I think checklists, you have to have a willingness to spend a little bit of money on the recovery part of the disaster recovery. Like,
right.
This could happen, does happen. Yeah, I think slowing down. I think the checklist thing is checklist manifesto an actual thing, Chad, or is that just what you called it?
It's
It's a book.
Yeah.
Is this where they talk about how it saves lives literally because surgeons use checklists and
surgeons, pilots, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, just be careful and then if it does happen, telling yourself first, walk in with a plan.
With a plan.
Yeah.
This is what happened. It was me, and here's how I'm going to fix it.
Right. And be kind to yourself. At least as kind as everybody else is being, maybe. It's like, hey, it happens, you deleted that thing and our backups failed. It was our backups. We've had it for a while. Well before you got here to delete our stuff for us and force a backup test, the first one we've had.
Right.
And so because they never tested and it was misconfigured and all that stuff and didn't work, it's like, well, if you had this here, then we would have been able to recover.
It's funny to hear you say all those things because I've heard all of those stories about backups in the past.
Yeah. Have you tested your backups?
It's worth maybe buying a fire extinguisher, but maybe it's too costly to put in a fire suppression system in your own house.
Yeah.
And have a fire station ready to go across the street.
I have 2 fire extinguishers, one in my kitchen and one in my living room that I can see. I know where it's at.
I'm really afraid of why you have one in the living room, but
flashlights, fire extinguishers, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Emergency, like roadside winter, whatever kit, blanket, snacks, that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's the over-prepared, super prepper. Then there's the laissez-faire, fly by the seat of your pants, and that's great until something happens. And that's not great if nothing ever happens on the other side. All right. Well, I'm going to move forward trying not to F anything up.
It's a solid strategy.
Yep. And we're going to work on our disaster recovery plan, and we're going to do some testing on the stuff.
I like it.
Yep.
Ugh.
So what we're going to do is we're going to delete Anna's mailbox. And part of our plan is like having her notice we did that without telling her. And then, yeah, it'll be great.
I'm not going to be around for that one.
No.
I'm busy
No.
that day.
How much pressure was on you, Peter, when you migrated us from Google over to Office 365 for our email?
Not much, because it wasn't a destructive migration. It was a duplication.
Copy it over.
Copy and
Okay.
paste.
Ah,
Intentionally so.
all right.
Intentionally so.
Excellent. So I think with all that, I think we should shut her down.
All right.
Alrighty. See you guys.
All right. Say goodbye,
Later.
everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.